One day, two little boys were playing by the river. James jokingly pushed his friend into the water. The next second, a splash of mud hit his face, but they didn't know their own strength. Soon, their play turned into a fight out of pique. Xiao Mao pushed James' head into the water. All the dirty water got into his mouth. This made him very uncomfortable. He got up and pushed Xiao Mao. This fall wasn't serious. But strangely enough, Xiao Mao didn't get up. He looked at the calm river surface. He seemed not to realize the seriousness of the problem. At this time, Xiao Mao's mother bought the shoes he wanted most. Immersed in happiness, she didn't know she had lost the person she loved most in this life. On the other side, James's mother had just got home. She saw a terrible scene. A boy who looked a lot like her son had drowned. She stared blankly. She even stopped breathing. On the day Xiao Mao's hearse left, his parents were so sad that they couldn't cry. They always thought Xiao Mao had slipped into the water by himself. James kept this secret tightly, but the inner torment grew stronger and stronger. He came to that river more than once, but no matter how he measured, the water couldn't even cover his knees, until he summoned up the courage to take one more step forward. Suddenly, he stepped into a hole. Frightened, he quickly ran to the shore. It turned out that there was a very steep slope in the water. The cause of Xiao Mao's death was clear. This made James feel even worse. He wanted to confess to his mother several times, but he was afraid of being put in prison, or even losing his mother's love forever. James's father was a hooligan when he was young. There are still scars on his face from fights. He doesn't know how to love at all. Moreover, because James is introverted and weak-willed, he doesn't even like watching football games. Father George thinks he's not manly enough. He's never liked him. His sister is busy falling in love all day. His sister is too young. The three children usually play on their own. They rarely have in-depth conversations. Although his mother loves James very much, the tedious housework leaves his mother no time to take care of him. So, although he lives in a family of 5, James is lonely every day. He really wants to join a small group nearby, play with them, but gradually he found the only girl in the small group, Mary, seems to have been bullied by them all the time. They snatched Mary's glasses, forced her to say all kinds of explicit things. They also made advances with a mischievous smile. Mary endured and agreed to their demands, but finally the glasses were thrown into the water. Kind-hearted James wanted to help Mary get her glasses back. James clearly saw them, but he lied and said he didn't see them, because he didn't know how deep this seemingly shallow pool actually was. In fact, it was very deep. He was afraid of losing his life like Xiao Mao. He wanted to have a chat with Mary, but suddenly Mary asked him, "Do you know the boy who drowned here?" James quickly lied and said he hadn't seen him. Suddenly, the wound on Mary's knee caught his attention. He wanted to bandage Mary's wound, but Mary misunderstood his intention. Mary actively pulled James's hand and put it on her leg. James didn't understand why Mary did this, but instinctively he didn't move his hand away. But his heart suddenly raced. He had a feeling he had never had before. Meanwhile, Xiao Mao's death kept his mother on the verge of collapse. A little thing could make her cry, and she always thought it was her husband who killed Xiao Mao. Although her husband kept emphasizing that he also loved the children, it wasn't his fault that he was too busy at work to be at home often. But besides her husband, the woman didn't know who to vent her grief to. James saw all this in his eyes. His self-blame and guilt became stronger and stronger. What he didn't expect even more was Xiao Mao's mother hugged him in her arms, temporarily treating him as her dead son. She also said they had the same eyes. James remained silent all the time, thinking that he was the one who killed her son. He couldn't say any words of comfort. Xiao Mao's mother asked him to go to Xiao Mao's bedroom and bring down those new shoes. James left as if fleeing for his life, but he bumped into Xiao Mao's father on the stairs. The things in his father's hands scattered all over the floor, but he didn't even have the strength to blame. James couldn't bear to see his haggard appearance anymore. He rushed upstairs quickly. When he came down with the shoes, he happened to see the tears in Xiao Mao's father's eyes. As a man, he could only cry behind his wife's back. What made James uncomfortable was Xiao Mao's mother gave these shoes to him. Seeing that they fit him well, finally a smile appeared on her face, but James kept his head down tightly. He felt mixed emotions in his heart. All he could do, maybe, was to come to the river wearing the shoes and tell Xiao Mao that his mother loves him and misses him very much. Suddenly, a boy with strange behavior walked over. Everyone calls him the animal boy, because he always stays with all kinds of strange animals. He also says it's more fun to get along with animals than with people. He even dreams that when he grows up, He wants to open the world's largest zoo. James suddenly got interested. He said there was a very big fish in this river. It would be so cool if he could catch it. But he reminded Kenny not to go into the water alone. This river is much more dangerous than they thought. After saying that, he got up and was about to leave. But just then, Kenny called him. Then he waved his hand and pretended to fly on the ground like a bird. Seeing this funny scene, James really envied him. He used to be so happy not long ago, just like this. But now, this kind of happiness will never come back. A few days later, James hung out with those older boys. But these people only regarded James as a tool. They came to Mary's house. They asked James to keep watch for them, and they were going to play games with Mary in the bedroom. James didn't know what games they were going to play. But hearing Mary's painful voice, he knew it must be something bad. Suddenly a boy invited him. "Do you want to come?" James walked in a daze. These boys were all in disheveled clothes. There were creepy smiles on their faces. They urged James to act quickly. Seeing that Mary didn't refuse, James lay on Mary according to their instructions. There was still a faint smile on his lips. After everyone left, James still didn't move. He let Mary stroke his head. The relationship between the two seemed to get closer. James didn't know how to fall in love. So he wanted to ask his sister, who loves to be in love, for advice. But his sister didn't want to take this burden with her at all. So he even stole his father's money. He took the bus alone to the city to find his sister. This was his first time leaving the town. He looked out of the window curiously, but all he saw was dirty garbage. In 1973 in the UK, the high welfare policy for the working class had seriously affected the economic development of the UK. The Iron Lady, Margaret Thatcher, started to vigorously reform the UK economy. The working class was hit hard because of this. So large-scale strike movements emerged everywhere. Of course, this included the cleaners. Of course, James didn't care about these things. He just wanted to know how long it would take to find his sister. But the unscrupulous driver dumped him halfway. Fortunately, there were strikes everywhere at this time. He played in the unfinished house for a long time. He also saw a very bright window. It was like a beautiful painting. It drew him in, step by step. James was like a rabbit escaping its cage, running wild and free, tumbling in the endless wilderness. All unpleasantness was left behind. Like yeet. This feeling of freedom is awesome, period. He only started the trek home towards evening. It was Kenny's birthday that day. His family gave him a pet white mouse. But those little punks not only snatched the mouse, they tossed it around like a hot potato, until Kenny was about to cry, then they gave it back. To show how unique he was, Kenny said his mouse could fly, and that it could fly to the moon. After saying that, he tied the white mouse to a balloon, and let go without a second thought. The balloon quickly flew into the sky, flying out of Earth's atmosphere, and quickly reached the surface of the moon, living happily with a bunch of other white mice. But no matter how hard he tried to show he was different, in their eyes, Kenny was always a joke. No cap. Even James thought so. He just said it off the cuff. And Kenny really wants to catch that legendary big fish? Right now, he's really enjoying his time with Mary. They pick lice off each other. They shower together. They eat bread and watch TV together. The news said the strike was ending. The government would send troops to clean up all the trash. But what they didn't know was that Kenny had already fallen into the river. Luckily, James's father was nearby and successfully rescued him. After the news spread, Father George quickly became a local hero. What a Chad! James wanted to use this to get on better terms with his father. But because of work stuff, his disgruntled father yelled at James, even on the day of the award ceremony. When the whole family was immersed in a happy atmosphere, James still couldn't get any affection from his father. George planned to go to the bar for a drink, but a girl asked him to hold her cat for a bit. She was going to buy ice cream, but little did he know, some punks were laughing at him, calling him a sissy. He couldn't help but say something back, and they straight up stabbed him with a comb. George came home covered in blood, angrily threw a pair of soccer shoes at James. His wife noticed he was off and wanted to check him over. It should have been a great day, but his father brought the family relationship to an ice-cold low. Feeling down, James sought comfort from Mary. But the neighbor lady muttered, "Geez, they're getting younger and younger." Another one. James didn't understand what the neighbor lady meant. Mary hugged him tightly from behind, enjoying a rare moment of warmth. Suddenly, Mary asked,
"James, you love me?"
James didn't respond, because he didn't even know what love was. Lacking love himself, he couldn't love others. At the same time, George held his wife in his arms and danced gently. That hard slap from earlier was so easily glossed over. The next day, the army stormed into town, helping the town clean up the trash. Really, it was warning the residents to behave and to not hold any more strikes. After a night of thinking, James seemed to have made some kind of decision. He came to the river early in the morning, wanting to pick up Mary's glasses, but he never succeeded. Afraid to go in the water, he gave up easily. The town was much livelier than usual. Adults were cursing at the army. Kids were finding rats to play with in the trash. This liveliness didn't belong to James. Kenny proudly showed James the rat he caught. Seeing James ignore him, Kenny's face was full of disappointment and loneliness. James thought the town was too noisy, so he took the bus to the unfinished housing complex alone. But this time, all the rooms had doors. He couldn't get in anymore. He could only go around the wall to the back and break in again, to that wheat field that once brought him joy and freedom. It was just drizzling rain today. James's mood was also very gloomy. After returning to town, the noisy crowds were gone. The piles of trash were gone too. He heard some movement nearby, so he quickly ran over to check, but found it was full of dense masses of rats. At this time, Kenny ran over carrying a big rat, saying he killed a lot today. James didn't understand at all. Kenny, who loved animals so much before, why kill so many rats? But Kenny said they were a scourge, unlike his Snowball. After saying that, he looked up and greeted the white mouse on the moon. "Snowball is dead, Kenny. You killed it." Kenny fell into thought. Laughter came from not far away. Because Mary was being bullied by boys in the bathroom, James witnessed all of this, but did nothing. Mary looked at his cowardly eyes. Disappointment in her heart was beyond words. Seeing Mary being dragged into the bathroom again by the boys, the angry James pushed Kenny, but Kenny said to not consider him a friend anymore. So don't listen to what he says. James was frustrated and upset, pushing Kenny again and again. Suddenly, Kenny kept repeating one sentence. "I saw it, I saw it. You killed Ryan Quinn. You killed him." James was so scared that he couldn't sleep all night. He couldn't imagine what would happen if this got out. How would people around him view him, especially his father, who is now a great hero? He would definitely look down on him even more. The more he thought about it, the more scared he got, the more despondent he became. So he took advantage of the night, held his sleeping sister, and slept for a while, and tugged at his mother's torn socks. Then, before sunrise, he came to the place where his buddy died, took off his coat, and jumped in without hesitation. At the end of the movie, James's family was assigned a new house by the government. That house happened to be the one with a large wheat field outside the window. Everyone was beaming with happy smiles. Only James silently walked at the end. He didn't follow them into the house, but silently put down the stool in his hand. Looking in the direction of his family, he showed a heart-wrenching smile. It turns out that all of this was just a beautiful fantasy before death. The movie ends here. James must have been a good guy. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so hung up about accidentally killing his buddy. But while he was kind, he was also too weak to admit his mistake. He was thrown into the river by punks and didn't dare speak up. He didn't dare respond to his crush's confession. And even when his crush was being violated in front of him again and again, he never dared to stand up. His weakness made his kindness a heavy burden. So he was constantly blaming himself, in pain, but had nowhere to express it, and finally turned into a sharp blade, and straight up killed himself. This weakness partly came from his innate personality, but I think the main reason still comes from his family, especially his father, who was incredibly cold to him. His father's constant rejections amplified his weakness into severe inferiority. He was always able to show kindness to outsiders, but was always hostile to his own son. Perhaps he thought that only by experiencing setbacks could his son grow into a real man. But he didn't expect to crush him directly. The only one who could have saved him in the whole film was perhaps that animal-loving boy who took the initiative to befriend him. But for the sake of ridiculous vanity, he learned from those punks to laugh at and isolate the boy. So the boy mercilessly spoke the truth, pushing him to his death. But in fact, the boy didn't necessarily really see what happened that day. Maybe he was just saying it to get to him. But James didn't even have the courage to verify it. I don't want to judge right and wrong, because compared to the complex social background at the time,